So someone in my comments section requested that I make a video on abuse, which is really important. So today I'm going to talk about the psychology of abuse from the abuser's perspective and also from the victim's perspective. People can go so far for love, even if it's hurtful. It can be emotional abuse, it can be physical abuse, and it can be really hard to talk about because a lot of people feel ashamed, whether they're an abuser or whether they've been abused. And a lot of people don't really understand, like, why would you stay in a relationship like that with somebody that hurts you? But you never really know what it's like until you're in it, and it's like a slippery slope. But don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications for more interesting psychology related content. But first off, before I get into the psychology of it, what are some signs of abusive relationships? It could be jealousy and insecurity, needing to know where the other partner is at all times, trying to keep them to themselves, like you can't hang out with anyone else but me. They also might call them names, make them feel less than what their worth is. They'll say things like, you're stupid, you're crazy, you're too sensitive, you're wrong, you don't know how good you have it, with this relationship. They'll never admit to anything. They'll kind of just blame you for everything. And they'll also turn it around after doing that and be like, do you know how much I love you? This causes so much stress, depression, anxiety, PTSD among individuals, and they might not even realize they're in an abusive relationship. So why do people abuse? What's going on there? That's pretty messed up, right? It's about power. A lot of individuals who abuse have actually been abused themselves, not always, but a lot of the time. They might have felt neglected by their parents or someone that was supposed to be a caregiver while they were young, and they are looking for ways to cope with that. They feel insecure in themselves. They feel like they need to have someone else be dependent on them so they can feel powerful. So therefore, they manipulate people, they lie, they hurt people, and they might feel guilty about it. But let's say they feel guilty after a while, they might apologize and start giving gifts to their partner and praise and kind of turning things back around to the way they were before things started getting ugly, trying to keep them in. And that usually does work in a lot of situations, but that guilt is from unresolved pain from the past. For someone that was emotionally neglected and feels like they need to abuse somebody, they need to develop a healthy relationship with themselves. They might need to see a therapist, talk to somebody, and then they might be able to have healthy relationships with others. But until they resolve those unresolved burdens and issues and baggage, then they're probably going to continue mistreating another person. People who abuse others, they generally haven't had a good example of what it means to be a respectful person in a relationship with good boundaries. And it's sad because they're using another person, making them a victim in order to make themselves feel more secure and to make their self-worth higher. And it doesn't even help. It generally doesn't help anyway. And they might not even be doing it consciously when they're manipulating others, but when they are manipulating others, they're not even really helping themselves. A lot of people ask this question, when they're thinking about a victim, let's say domestic abuse, for example. Why doesn't she leave, right? And that could be a really hurtful question because a lot of individuals who've been through it, they can't really describe why they can't leave. So I was a hotline counselor for victims of domestic violence before I started my grad school. This was right after I finished my undergrad at Temple. And I spoke to a lot of women, mostly women. There were some men as well, but mostly women who were being abused by their partners. And a lot of the time, they don't really understand what they're going through. They generally explain that things started off really nice, this was a perfect ideal partner. It felt like I was in some kind of romance movie, right? It just felt too good to be true. And then things kind of just took a turn over time. And something you have to understand, it could happen to anyone, anywhere in the world, among a bunch of different cultures. A lot of people have this stereotype in their mind of the kind of people that get abused, but it could be anyone. It could be a family member of yours, a friend, a close friend. It could be a sister, a mother. It could be anyone. It happens all the time. Here's some really horrifying statistics of abuse, why it's really important for me to talk about this. Over 85% of abusers are men. So there are women who abuse men as well, or women that abuse women. This is, across sexual orientations. It's not just heterosexual. Women aged 16 to 24 are the most likely to be abused. Almost half of women and men in America have experienced psychological or physical abuse in their lifetime. Over 500 women and girls are killed by abusers every year in the US. That's insane. 1 in 3 American women experience domestic violence or stalking in their life. So when you think about why can't she leave, it actually makes sense because it's been shown, and I'll get into the statistic later, but generally when people are murdered in these situations, it's after they've left. So the abuser feels like they have nothing left to lose, and then they kill their partner. So that's really scary. Like I said, before the things get ugly and terrifying and scary and violent and emotionally abusive, there's pretty much never anything that indicates that in the beginning. Generally, when you first meet somebody who's an abuser, they will praise you. They will make you seem like you are amazing. They'll seduce you. They'll be like, I'm so interested in what you do. You're such an amazing person. They'll just feel like this like Prince Charming or princess. It feels so good, too good to be true almost.
But when someone seems too good to be true, they usually are.
And then, over time, they isolate you. They might make it seem like, oh, I just want it to be us together and make it all cutesy. But they pretty much make you leave behind your identity. They kind of like slowly take you away from your family and friends so that your family and friends can't notice the bruises, or, they're not there to help you when you need them. Then they put you down and say bad things about you, and they notice your insecurities over time and your flaws, and they tackle those, and they try to make you dependent on them. And in reality, like I've said before, it's because they feel like they need someone else to be dependent on them for their own insecurities. They'll scream at you, they might curse at you, they'll point out your imperfections, they'll deny that they did anything wrong, they'll pretty much blame it on you. And victims often don't know they're being abused, like I've said before. A lot of the time they'll think like, oh, my partner, that, they need someone like me, they're troubled, and, they've been through a lot, and, it's not about me, it's about them. A lot of the time they won't even like indicate it. Even when it's violent, they won't think they're being abused because they're like, they need me. They'll think about the other person more than themselves. They think that leaving is an absurd idea and it's dangerous, and they're not wrong because 70% of murders happen after she leaves. How do you actually leave an abusive relationship? Like that's the kicker right there. That's hard. You have to really tell someone. You have to reach out for help. It depends on the details of the situation. If there's a safe place you can get to and tell everyone you know, tell your family, tell your friends, ask for their help. You can also get a PFA, a protection from abuse. This is something that I helped a lot of women with. Mostly it was women. I never helped a man get a PFA, but that was something that I did at the Hotline Center. Was a protection from abuse. It's a protector for them, kind of like a restraining order, but it doesn't put anything on the record of the partner. So like this is kind of a safe way to protect yourself. It's like pretty much if you come near me, then there will be legal issues, but I'm not threatening your record in any sense. I'm just protecting myself from you. So I helped women with that. So getting a PFA can be really helpful. Telling everybody you know and just getting out of the situation when it is safe to do so, just because you don't want to you don't want to do it in like the middle of an argument, right? Like let's say you live in the same house as your abuser and you guys are in an argument and you say, I'm leaving you, and he's like blocking the door. Like that could be really dangerous because that could be when he ultimately tries to murder you. So I would recommend possibly doing it in a safe situation rather than when you're alone with this person. But in general, abusive relationships thrive in silence. So the more that you can get the word out to protect yourself, the better off you will be. I also want to talk about attachment theory a little bit in terms of like why people stay with abusive people in abusive relationships. Let's say like there's a woman who grew up, but she had like parents that weren't really there for her, kind of like neglected her. Maybe they would say I love you and show loving behavior sometimes, but it was inconsistent. She might have developed an avoidant attachment style, like an insecure avoidant attachment style. Individuals who develop that over time, according to attachment theory, they're more likely to repeat similar patterns in future relationships that they are comfortable with, because they shouldn't be comfortable with it, but they're comfortable with that reality of like this inconsistent love and attention from their parents. So because they feel comfortable with that lack of love, they are more likely to gravitate towards really toxic relationships and abusers. For some reason, they tolerate the abuse because they feel like they deserve it somehow. And a lot of the time they put the blame on themselves. They have a critical inner voice, and they also have these expectations of what the abuser could be, even though that's unrealistic. the way to get out of that is understanding why you feel that way about yourself, why you're so critical of yourself and don't deserve that love, and why your self-worth is so low, through therapy, through talking about it, through watching videos like this, understanding the psychology. Then you will see the reality and you will set standards for what you should tolerate, and understand that threats and disrespect and abuse and them hurting you, that will never ever be tolerated again. I really hope that this was a helpful video. If you feel you know somebody in your life who might benefit from this and they're in a safe place to watch it, then please share this with a loved one. Don't forget to like and subscribe and turn on bell notifications. And also you can check out this recent video that I just made on how to spot manipulative traits of partners. Here's a little clip. They'll be like one weekend and they say, I love you, or I want you to be my wife, or I want you to be my husband. And it's just like, how do you feel that way already? But it might feel good in the moment because you're like, wow, this is like a fairy tale. This is like what you see in the movies. Yeah, that was a little clip of my video from last week, and here's a little link to it up here if you want to check it out. Thanks again, and I'll see you next week for another video. Bye.